The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Welcome to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Down the Garden Path, where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design for the past 11 years. It is a design-only business here of the east of the GTA in Ontario, Canada. And with me is my co-host, Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I am Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you, from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. We welcome your questions, as always, via social media and emails.
That's right. And we'd like to thank you once again for joining us down the garden path. And remember that this live episode will become a podcast. So please, if you do enjoy listening to us and maybe can't stay tuned in for the whole live show, please subscribe or check us out on your favorite podcast app and subscribe. And that way you will get notified when every new release comes out. So thank you very much once again for joining us down the garden path here tonight. And we have a hot topic. Now, gardening season is in the air, don't you think?
Oh, it is, especially today.
Yeah, especially today. So we are, as we always are talking about low maintenance, and that's one of the things that our clients are always looking for, as are we, as we're busy people. We are talking about a hot topic as in regards to low maintenance landscaping, and we are talking irrigation. And it's always a hot topic also because people are concerned about conserving water, the environment, but everybody wants to make sure their plants survive and their grass is green. And so we're really looking forward to speaking with Daniel Domingues, and he's the general manager at Aquaman Irrigation. And I'll tell you, he's going to join us in a minute. I'm just going to read a little bit about him. So Daniel is the general manager, like I said, at Aquaman Irrigation, a family business that has been serving the irrigation industry in Southern Ontario for over 35 years. Daniel has extensive project management experience managing large-scale construction projects, most recently the Eglinton LRT in Toronto. In 2016, the opportunity arose to move back into the family business and work towards succession. He brings his skills of project management, relationship building, and his love of the outdoors with him. Daniel is LEED certified professional who has built numerous LEED construction projects and more recently has become WSIP certified. He combines his knowledge in both areas to both best serve his clients as a steward for the environment. And we know from my interactions with Daniel, he is passionate about his company. And welcome to the show, Daniel.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Yes, I'm excited to talk about this topic because I think it is very timely at the beginning of the season. How is your season starting up?
Well, it's kind of been ongoing, but mostly just business development. As far as actually physical work, today was actually my first day out there with the shovel, so it took me a little bit of time to get reacquainted with my tool, but I think I did okay. My back is only slightly sore.
Yes, you have to ease your back into it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, irrigation systems.
Yes.
Is there a basic irrigation system? When people think irrigation, I think of a massive network of tubes and heads and controllers and everything like that. Is there?
I wouldn't say basic. What
Okay.
I will say is conventional. So,
Okay.
Good word.
I mean, you made a comment earlier on, the most low maintenance things, and it doesn't get any more low maintenance than an automatic irrigation system. You can be out there standing with your hose every night, making sure you get equal distribution throughout your property, or you can just leave it up to somebody else to put the proper system in and monitor it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there is conventional, I will say, not basic, not standard, where the pipes and the heads, for all intents and purposes, are generally still going to be in the same area doing the same thing, but really it's the brain behind the operation. That's what the wave is with the new smart technologies. So just to give you a simple example, if you're looking at a picture, a calendar, let's say the month of June, for example, with a conventional timer, if an irrigation guy comes to set your timer up for the year, he'll set it to run, let's just say every day for argument's sake, and it might be easier to picture this. So he'll set it to run every day, 7 days a week, 30 days, whatever, a month. And then he's going to leave. Unless somebody else goes and physically changes that setting, it's going to run that way every day. Now, the beautiful thing about the new smart controllers is that, you combine parameters from the site itself, i.e. evapotranspiration for the area, soil types, microclimates. You input that into the controller, and that controller syncs to a weather station. Typically, we pick the closest airport because they've got, $50,000, $100,000 weather stations installed. They calibrate them frequently, so you can take advantage of that. They're very accurate. So that weather station will feed data back and forth to your controller, wind, temperature, humidity, rainfall potential, and it'll take that data plus the information that you put in, the parameters that you put into your controller, and every day on a day-to-day basis, it's going to adjust your schedule for you. So, like I said with the conventional timer, I might come in and set it, or your sprinkler guy might come in and set it to run every day, and when he leaves, it's going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a smart controller, when he leaves, it's going to only allow the system to run when it should run for as long as it should run based on the parameters of your specific property. So, for example, if I set it to run every day with a conventional timer, the smart system may only run 5-10 days a month.
Right. Okay.
And that's enough.
Okay.
So that's really where you're saving, you're going to see the biggest water consumption. You're going to see the biggest savings in your pocket.
Okay.
And on top of that, now you're getting into also having the ability to control it remotely through your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our clients, for example, have cottages, or they go away for 1 or 2 months in the summer. So conventional timer, you kind of go away and you hope that when you come back, everything is still green.
Right. Yeah.
Smart timer, you go away. If you're bored one night sitting around the pool or at the beach, most people probably aren't.
Yeah.
But you could check your phone, see, okay, things are running. It ran last night. It's going to run tomorrow. And also, we will see that. So even though you may be away, even if you don't check the status of your system, your provider will get notifications to his phone or computer saying, hey, Zone 6 at, ABC John Street is either not shutting off or there's an overwater. Basically, it's telling you there could be a leak, or it'll tell you there's a solenoid shorting. So instead of, the homeowner coming back a month or two later with maybe one patch of brown or the whole property's brown, your irrigation guy he'll see that and he can jump on it. He can go take care of it while you're away. If you don't kind of have that relationship, he could reach out to you and say, hey, I noticed Zone 1 is not working. Do you want me to go take a look? And then the homeowner can say yes or no.
Okay.
So that's really the big difference you're going to see now in irrigation is the smart controller versus the conventional.
Right. Okay.
Conventional is a set and forget. Smart controller is exactly that. It's smart.
Yes.
It's going to do the work for you.
Okay. Let's back up a little bit, Daniel, and just talk about, so I think a lot of people, as Matthew was alluding to, think that their property is too small for irrigation or it's too expensive for them. But I think it's really much more practical than people realize.
It is. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I think what I see is the biggest challenge is just convincing somebody to look long term. You know, no matter how small your house is. I mean, I have a small townhouse in Beamsville. One of the first things I did was put sprinklers in, predominantly because I was renting it out and I wanted to make sure somebody was going to take care of the property, or something was, i.e. my sprinkler system.
Right.
But so I did the math. Let's say a small townhouse, I don't know, 1,400 square foot townhouse, small front, small back lawn. If you were to stand out there with the hose by yourself, in order to get the same amount of water coverage that your sprinkler system is going to do 3 days a week, maybe an hour total running at each interval, so 3 hours a week, it's going to take a person with the hose 60 hours in a week to cover their lawn with water the same way that their sprinklers are going to do it automatically.
Wow. That seems excessive, though. Like, that was just an example, right?
Well, it was a calculation. I did basically what I did is I took a design for a house.
Okay.
And to come up with that number from the hose, what I did is you take the gallons per minute flow from each head, and you combine that, multiply it by the duration the whole system is going to run. That gives you, let's say, for example, 100 gallons. Now, to cover your whole lawn with 100 gallons from a garden hose, it'll take you between 50 and 60 hours to cover all the areas. So, I mean, it sounds wrong, but that's the reality. To get the same amount of coverage from your sprinklers, that's what it's going to take you with the hose to walk around. And that includes, putting the hose down, picking it up, moving it over here, going to through the gate into the backyard, focusing on this section. Yeah.
Or my favorite thing is to leave the hose running and go inside to make dinner and forget about the hose and realize that I'm now watering the driveway and the street and my neighbor's driveway because I've left the hose going. So, yes.
Exactly.
Water conservation.
A lot of people like the sprinklers that you get from Home Depot, for example. You hook it up to the hose, it goes back and forth. And exactly like you just said, they hear the oven beeping, they run inside, they start serving dinner. Next thing you know, you're sitting down for dinner. Somebody finally remembers the sprinkler's been in the same spot for an hour and a half.
Yes. Totally my life. Or and sometimes that's not just an hour and a half from like in the morning. You're like, oh my goodness, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
that has happened as well. So what is involved? We can kind of tell our listeners. So if any of our listeners have questions about irrigation for Daniel, please email them to us now at instudio101@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you because I think it is a popular topic and people aren't really sure what to do and how it works and what is involved. So if someone was to call you today, like a new client, what are the steps? How much are you damaging their property, that type of thing, or how deep do you have to dig? Can you go over that basic installation?
Well, here's what I like to tell people, and I'm sure people have different experiences, and that usually will tell you whether you're dealing with a professional or somebody who's kind of doing it as a side gig. If you have a qualified, professional, experienced contractor install your sprinkler system, you should be able to leave for work in the morning, come home after work, and barely be able to tell, if at all, that anybody was even there in your lawn.
Wow.
I know it sounds kind of unbelievable, but realistically, you should not butcher a lawn. I mean, you can do very precise cutting with the sod, remove it carefully, move it out of the way, dig the soil, put the pipes in, use a rake to put it back neatly, and then tamp the sod back down. You will see some scarring initially, but within a week to 2 weeks tops, you won't even know anybody was there.
Impressive.
And that's the biggest, that's what a lot of people are afraid of, especially if they're getting irrigation installed after they've already done major landscaping, because, at that time, there's no sod, so sure, come in, be my guest, slice it up, and then I'm going to cover it anyway with grass. But it's often I find that people who, they're happy with the landscape, but they want to put irrigation. those are the clients who I notice are the most weary about it. And, there's, once a week, if the homeowner's home, they'll come out, they'll go to pick up lunch or something, and they'll look at the grass and the lawn, and they'll say, "Oh my God, what are you guys doing?" All I say to them is, "Don't look, go about your day. When you're done, then come back and kind of judge it."
Right.
9 times out of 10, they're shocked. "Oh my God, I can't believe you're done. Like,
yes.
Where's everything?" So that's the difference. But I understand the concern because a lot of people take a lot of pride in the the appearance of their lawn, and they don't want blemishes anywhere. But if you got the right person who's qualified, you're not going to notice.
Okay. So it is something we can
do.
do. So I think that is a misconception too, that people think, oh, my landscaping's already done. It's all established. I only can do irrigation when I'm doing a new installation. But that's not true, right?
Right, exactly. You can put it in any time you want. And the thing about, the landscaping being established, yes, that is a factor, but sprinklers are only supposed to supplement rainfall anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, you never know what kind of year you're going to have. I think 2 years ago we had, we didn't have a day of rain for 3 months, and you really notice it then.
Yeah.
The people, driving through a neighborhood, you'll see who has sprinklers and who doesn't right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically the color of their lawn. But, certain things don't need as much water, but again, everything that grows and is green needs water at some point. Sprinklers are just more of an insurance policy. If you're not going to be out there maintaining yourself with the hose, and you don't really trust the fact that you're going to get, enough water every year, sprinklers are an insurance policy against basically your landscape investment. We're such a small part of the picture of a landscape job, financially and kind of planning-wise, but with that said, we have the biggest impact on the appearance, the health, and the longevity of a landscape project. So, it's, when everybody gets to the end of the landscape project or the budgeting, the sprinklers is always at the bottom. So unfortunately for me, sometimes the budget runs out.
Yes.
People don't have the money. But then eventually they realize, well, hey, wait a second, we just spent $50, $100, $200, $300,000 on this beautiful landscape job, and it's all dying, or I have to be out there with the hose every night. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we end up getting called back, to put it in.
To put it in after the fact, yes. It is easier. So if you are getting new landscaping, so if any of our listeners are getting new landscaping, it is much easier to do at the same time.
It is, yes.
Dan, what do you like to do? I've been on different jobs where the different contractors, have different timing. So some like to leave it to the end, like do all the hardscaping, do all the planting, have everything in, and then call you in to kind of lay your pipes. Some want to kind of be involved before you start planting. Do you have a preference? Are there pros and cons?
Pros and cons. Okay, so with your first example, coming in at the end of everything.
Yes.
I don't like to do that. We do it if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to do that, and here's why. Usually when the landscapers, they plant the plants in a certain way, I don't want anybody even having the remotest chance of breaking a twig here or doing any, leaning a tree over a little bit because you have to squeeze between it. Ideally, for me, probably most people you'll hear the best time is hardscaping is in, but you've coordinated with the landscaper, so conduits are there.
Mm-hmm.
Hardscaping is in, the beds are laid out, the sod is rough graded, the sod area is rough graded. So essentially we come in, we slap it all in, for the most part a day or two, depending on the size of let's say a home.
Right.
Most houses we get done in a day, 2 days tops. And then afterwards the landscapers come in, they roll the sod out beautifully, they plant all the plants, they see where our heads are. That's ideal for me. I don't really like working around finished planting.
Right.
Like I said, we've done it, we do it. It all depends on scheduling and everything.
Yes, because landscapers would say they don't like planting around your lawns, your heads, right? So it's one of those things.
It comes down to.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, that becomes the challenge, right, of negotiating. Because I think then the landscapers are worried about breaking, having their guys, dig a shovel through your line and stuff. So
what we like to do is we keep everything out to the perimeter as best as possible, and then we branch off in to the yard. So, if for example, if a landscaper has a garden bed, He knows our pipes are going to be on the perimeter. He can plant whatever he wants in the middle. But again, it's a lot of coordination as well. As long as your landscaper and your irrigation guy are coordinating, they'll work out what's best for either of them. Like you said, some people prefer this, some people prefer that. Again, at the end of the day, we're just going to do whatever makes the landscaper most comfortable and, time permits.
Right.
So,
okay.
Ideally, it's before the planting is in, but like I said, we've done everything.
Yeah.
I mean, last summer we did a job where it just didn't work out timing-wise, so literally the day after they finished the landscape job, i.e. fresh sod, fresh planting, everything was done entirely. And then, here's the sprinkler guys to come rip it all apart. So
yeah.
It's not ideal, but I mean, it can be done, and
Right.
it can be done just as good. You would never know that anybody was there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, ideally before any of the sod goes down and any of the planting goes in, so long as it's coordinated. If there's not much coordination happening, then yeah, for less headaches for me, I'd probably come in after all the planting's done, just so you don't have to repair any of the pipes that are fresh. But again, anything can be done. However it's kind of coordinated.
However it works. Now, so as the plant person, always on site with, you also, do you like looking at a design ahead of time? Because each area needs a different, amount of water. Let's say the lawn needs something, the perennials need something else, the trees need something else. Are you looking at, do you get that information, or I would assume you'd like that information, but does that go into you creating the irrigation plan?
Ideally, yes. As much info as we can get up front is going to get us the ability to give you the best design. But even, we're very worst case, as long as we know where perennials are going, or hedges, boxwoods, and sod. Because for hedges and shrubs, it's predominantly drip irrigation. Sorry, hedges and shrubs where you're not mixing in any flowers. So, a line of shrubs or just a bed of hedges, you can get drip piping in there. Anywhere where you've got flowers, you've got to have sprays, and then sod is rotors, and it's on their own zone. So when I say microclimate, that's kind of when we're designing, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for groupings of like plants that are going to use similar amounts of water. So, I mean, ideally, the most info we can get up front, the better.
Yes.
It's not the end of the world, as long as, I would say the least information you need is the layout. So This is going to be a flower bed, this is going to be a row of hedges, this is going to be sod.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to give you enough to give you an efficient irrigation design.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but again, that's not always ready.
Yeah.
But you can work with that. As long as you generally know what areas are going to be what, then you can work with that while it's kind of being decided.
Okay. And what about trees? Because they're going to need water initially.
Yeah, the first year they need water.
But then as they mature, they're going to need, a little bit less and less.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways you can do it depending on the trees. You can either, if they're in, usually what we see is there's big trees right in the middle of lawns. So when you plant sod, it needs a lot of water to begin with anyway. So generally those zones, you don't need to add anything special to ensure that the trees take.
Okay.
But if you're adding trees in, say, just say you're going to plop a tree in the middle of a lawn that's already existing, you're not going to be watering that sod like it's fresh, then there's root watering systems that are available that we use, where basically it's a canister, let's say, I think they're about 18 or 36 inches deep, where you install it right beside the base of the tree, and it's similar to the micro drip emitters, where basically it's just going to drip out of a little emitter at the top of that canister. It's going to fill down into this root watering system, and that water is going to disperse only to that tree's root.
Oh, okay.
So you're watering the tree. You're not wasting any water by throwing it around in the air with a sprinkler head, and you can control how much water the trees are getting. And when we do it that way, we put those on their own zone, so that these 5 trees are only being watered these days a week. At the beginning, this amount of time. As the season goes on, we'll decrease it. And then, a lot of times it doesn't make sense to pull that out. You keep them in place and you just really dial back the amount of water, and then you just keep an eye on it. I mean, if you have a really dry season or dry a couple months and you're noticing some stress on the tree, then you can crank up that root watering system and it's going to do the job right away. The good thing with those as well is you're not waiting for the water to saturate through the soil to get down to the roots. It's going right to the roots.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the best way to do it. But I mean, you're right. Especially large trees, once they're there and they've taken after a year, they don't need nearly as much water. Now, here's the thing: if you've got a lot of larger, even medium-sized trees in a flower bed, for example, those roots are going to try and take all the water they can get, which is going to hurt the flowers or hurt the sod.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why you still need to irrigate those areas to make sure that everybody gets the amount of water they need to be happy.
Oh, pardon me. So I have a question going back to the smart controllers. If you have the shrubs and, say, your annual beds and your sod, and they each need different zones, have different heads and the different amounts of water, how do you have to manually input that into the smart controller to give them all that water?
When we set it up, you go through zone by zone. So let's say I'm at a house that's got 4 zones.
Okay.
System's installed based on our design. The timer goes up on the wall. I set it up on the app. I load the customer's Wi-Fi, the homeowner's information. Then in order to set the schedule, I have to go zone by zone. So you hit zone 1. It asks you, what's the microclimate? Asks you the soil type. It asks you the planting type. It asks you evapotranspiration, which is usually a standard for the area.
Okay.
So it takes all that information for that zone alone, and then based on what you've selected, the parameters for that zone, the logic is already in the controller. It's already set a certain way for, if you've got a part sun area that's sandy clay or sandy loam, and it's perennials. It knows how much water it should apply to that. And then let's say I move on to zone 2, which is sod. You put the soil type, if it's full sun, if it's part shade, it takes all of those parameters as well, and it's going to adjust the schedule. For example, full sun rotor zone will be 45 minutes. As soon as you change it to part sun, you got a couple big trees, it's casting some shade onto the area, it's going to dial back that 45-minute setting by, say, 15-20%. Based on the other factors. And then on top of that, when it's getting the data from the weather station, all of that new data every day is also being factored into the algorithm / equation, however you want to look at it, to determine how long that zone needs to run for, if it even needs to run that day, or if it needs to run it all for 2 or 3 days.
That's impressive that it has all that information.
I know. It's
really cool. I gotta say, it's really cool. And yeah.
So.
There you go. We've got a question for you. Yeah, we have lots of questions. Matt and I have a ton of questions, but we're going to get to the listener's question here. So go ahead, Matt.
Oh, okay. So James writes in, hi, Joanne and Matt. A very interesting topic this evening. However, like most of us poor folks, the big question is how much? Cheaper than the box store system? I think that we would all like to own a system like this, but cost is a big decision factor. So
and that's understandable. And like I said, I mean, usually when it gets to the end of the budgeting, there I am standing, with my proposal. So I get that. And you know what? At the end of the day, like anything, a landscape design, a landscape project, irrigation system or lighting, it's all considered a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I don't want to kind of speak out of line here, but you can get a system installed very cheaply. You can do it. There's people out there, you can find them, that will blow everybody out of the water price-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you won't get with that is the customer service down the road. You probably won't get a system designed to code. You probably won't get a system that's efficient. So you can go, and this is what I try to explain to people. I mean, I'm up against it every day. Guys who are half of my price, I don't understand how they get to that number and still make money, but they're half my price. And when I explain to the homeowners, okay, this is the best way I can explain. You're going to get a system for, let's say, $1,000. The guy is just going to essentially throw some pipes in some heads, doesn't really know what they're doing, it's just as long as he's wetting the grass. So that system might cost you $150 a month on your water bill. Then you have somebody who's certified, reputable, experience come in. They may put a system in for twice that amount. So let's say $2,000 instead of $1,000, just for argument's sake. That's a low number, but
Yeah.
$2,000. But his system is going to cost you $50 to $75 a month on water based on his efficient design. So, yeah, you save $1,000 up front, but if you're in your home for 10 years, you're going to be paying twice, 3 times, 4 times the amount over the life of the sprinkler system,
Right.
just on the water consumption alone, than if you had just paid a little bit more up front, had somebody who knows what they're doing to do it in a way that's going to save you money down the road. I mean, ultimately, I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm operating a charity. I would like to make some money. I have a family to feed and some employees to pay.
Yes.
But also, I mean, we're passionate, at least I am, about conservation and saving the homeowner money. So, yeah, it's going to cost you money up front, but we're going to do our best to make sure that it's going to save you money throughout the life of it. So, I mean, let's say, it's hard to, I say small, medium, and large. This is kind of a guideline I give to people. And apologies, I don't have a general lot size to associate with these numbers, but for a typical, average family, single home, let's say a front yard could be roughly $2,750 for a front yard.
Okay.
Or if it's a small home, say it's a townhouse, a middle unit front and back, could be $2,750 for the whole system. When you get into, let's say, medium, you're looking at between $2,750 and $4,500 for the whole system.
Let's say like a pie-shaped lot, something like that, right? That's gotten a little bit bigger.
Front, back, sides, detached home, average size home.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the larger stuff, the estate homes or the mansion, stuff like that, then you're getting into $7,500 and up. Generally, I will say, though, the majority, I would say 50 to 60% of our business is, your average size home. So you're looking at about, let's say, 3,000 to 4,500 is majority of our single home systems go in for that amount.
Okay. Yeah, that would be in line with my experience as well. And I think when you think about that amount of money and the amount of garden, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's nothing really. I know it's one of those things that runs out. I'm the opposite end of you in the sense that they don't want to they don't want to use up their landscaping budget on a design because they want to leave it all for the landscaping. But it's like, no, you're going to save so much more money if you start with the plan, right? And then same with you with irrigation and lighting, it kind of comes in the end. And they've used all their budget. So that's the benefit of a design, is that will incorporate the landscaping, the trees, the gardening, the irrigation, the lighting, all of that is up front, and people can have a vision for that. So
and that's a good point that you mentioned that, because it's the same, with the irrigation. If you get somebody involved early enough who sees what the plan is, they're going to give you a design that you just can't beat it efficiency wise, because they've been involved along, they know what plants are going where. And they know what they're doing. Guys who, offer design, they put their reputation on the line, so they do try. A guy who would come in, or, fly-by-nighter, he may put, for example, one rotor on the lawn, which is the large rotating sprinklers, but he's going to use that rotor to hit all the sod, all the flower beds within reach, and all of the boxwoods.
Yeah.
But to keep those flowers happy, you're going to have to run that zone way longer than you would need to if it was just, sod was sod, perennials were perennials, and boxwoods were boxwoods. So, I mean, we're at the opposite ends of the spectrum, but both have kind of the same impact. It's just a matter of what I think, what I've noticed is just kind of educating. Basically, the conversation we're having right now, I try to have with the clients and explain to them, here's the difference between, somebody who knows what they're doing that you're going to pay a little bit more for up front, versus somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, but they'll do it for a price that you're happy with.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
again, you're going to do it once. You're going to do it. right? You're going to do it once, you might as well do it right.
That's
right.
right.
I mean,
and you get what you pay for sure. And I think the cost of trees, a couple gardens with large trees, you're at $5,000 worth of that, you know what I mean? So yes, you're spending $5,000 to look after those trees, but you want those things that you spent $5,000 on to last the rest of the time you're in the home.
Exactly.
And I also think irrigation systems add a ton of value to the house as well. So not only is it adding you're saving the person who's living there now and the health of the plants, but I think when you go to sell the house and knowing that the house comes with an irrigation system, I think is a huge. We'd need a real estate agent to tell us what that percentage is, but I think it's huge.
Somebody did. I spoke to somebody about that, and they didn't really give me any information. They said $5,000 to $10,000. Depending on the size of the home and the size of the property, it could add in value. We've had, it sounds kind of crazy, but we've put in systems right before people have listed because it was a recommendation by their agent. Said, hey, they said, what sort of cheap upgrades can we do now, renovations that are going to give us the biggest impact when we sell? And sprinklers is one of them. I mean, if it's just from a perspective of selling, but never mind that. I mean, you live at your house, we've got a saying where, we want you to spend more time doing what you love with who you love. Leave the watering to us. Who wants to come home after work, and stand out there with the hose? Although some people do. I won't take that away from them. But,
for sure.
I'd like to come home and play with my daughter, fire up the barbecue, that kind of stuff, and not worry about my lawn.
Yeah, for sure. And I know James referred to the big box store items, and yes, they're available, and there's lots of handy guys out there that set them up. And I know I've had clients too where, I'm replacing perennials because the perennials are dying, and they're like, well, everything's, we've got our irrigation system and everything's set up. But like you said, the shrubs and the boxwood and the perennials are getting watered the same as the lawn, and it's just that's not required, right? Especially once things are established. So,
and that said as well, the quality of the products you're going to get at a Home Depot, for example, they're just not the same as you're going to get from an irrigation supplier. I mean, they can do the job. They won't do the job for as long as well. I'll use an example of your standard spray nozzle. When you get into the Rainbirds and the Hunters and the Toros, those companies have been doing this for a long time. They're spending a lot of money on R&D. Those nozzles are going to work exactly the way they're designed to for as long as they're going to until somebody kicks them over or cuts it with the lawnmower. Whereas you get into some of the Home Depot stuff, and I mean, we've got clients that we service that it was Home Depot materials that was installed at the time. We didn't do it, but we came in to service it after the fact. And valves, they go like nothing. I mean, they're just not built the same, and it's kind of like we're talking about on the different vein, where you get what you pay for. So,
right, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it'll do the same job. You can get the same system. You can get a system from Home Depot. Yes, it will do the same job initially. It won't do it as long as you're the better quality stuff. But again, that's just like everything.
Right. Okay.
It all depends.
Go ahead. So Matt.
Yeah, so we've got a few questions here for you. Our listeners are writing in for you here, Daniel. Joyce asks, what happens when it rains if the system is preset for hours, days, zones, etc.? Does the system go on? Thank you.
That's a great question, and actually I'm glad you asked that, because that's one of the with the new smart controllers, that's something that's a big difference maker. So there's been rain sensors for as long as sprinklers have been going in, or maybe not as long, but basically a rain sensor, what it does is you install it up an area that can have it's accessible to water, so it's far enough from any eavesdrops, any roof coverings, that it's going to collect all the rain that's falling on it. The problem with the rain sensor is it's only going to kick out. So basically how it works is inside of this rain sensor there's discs usually, and when they get saturated enough, they separate, and that disconnects the power to the system. So it shuts the system off entirely until it dries up enough till it reconnects the system.
Okay.
Now, the problem is, if that dries up, say you get like a really strong thunder shower, enough rain to short the system, it's going to put the system off. Now, really, that lawn has just received, let's say, an inch of water, which that's the standard. An inch of water per week is generally enough for any landscape. That's the goal.
Okay.
So let's say it rains an inch. it shuts off the system. And then it's a scorching afternoon, it dries up those corks. That system is now set to run again the next day or the day after based on the program that it's already set for. So even though the properties had its adequate water for the whole week and the rain sensor did its job, it turned off the system while it was raining, it's still going to run on Wednesday when it doesn't need to. So the good thing about the smart controllers is, you know, you have that measure with the rain sensor, which is good. You still need it because, you know, the weather station may be 10 kilometers away. Maybe there's a thunder shower there. It didn't rain at the house. But the good thing with the smart controller now is that you set the parameters. So if you set, for example, if it rains more than 1 inch, do not water for 4 days. So, you know, with the system that only had the rain sensor, yeah, it shut out, it did its job, but then it's going to run again 2 or 3 times that week when it doesn't need to. Whereas with the smart controller, it's already saying, hey, I've already got my inch of water this week. Forget what the schedule says. I'm going to suspend the system for, you know, 3, 4, 5 days. And then during those 3, 4, 5 days, it's tracking the evapotranspiration, which is the rate at which the water evaporates out of the soil, the grass, the plants.
Okay.
It's also measuring the wind and the sun. So,
yeah,
you know, it's going to tell your system when it should operate again. So you can put a rain sensor as a bare minimum measure. It's going to cut it out when it's raining. But really, the best impact you're going to get as far as the rain is from a smart controller. They say a rain sensor will save you about 10% on your water. Smart controllers, 30 to 50%, depending on a few variables.
Wow, that's great. It really is smart, isn't it?
It is. You know what? It's smarter than me. Unfortunately, these computers can do a whole lot more than we can.
Yes, yeah. So we have another question for you. So this is a good one too.
Yeah, Kyle's wondering if you could talk to the winter maintenance on an irrigation system.
Winter maintenance, 0.
Ah.
The only thing you need to do is make sure that you schedule your blowout before everything is frozen. So we've had, basically what that is, you know, a guy will come, he'll bring a compressor, he'll hook up to the main line, and now that's going to pump air at high pressure through the system as if it was water. So we shut the main water source that stops water to the system. We hook up a pipe just after that, a compressor hose, crank up the compressor. It's now pressurizing the system with air. We run through each zone just like it normally would run, but now instead of water running through, it's air, pressurized air. So it's gonna drain the entire system of all moisture, so that throughout the winter you don't have to worry about anything freezing, bursting, cracking. We've had some clients who've taken the risk. They wanted to save the $100 for the blowout and just roll the dice.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really worked out well. You know,
No,
you might
yeah,
have $100,
exactly.
but then when we show up in the spring,
Yeah.
you're looking at, you know, $500 to repair plumbing and, you know, broken heads and this and that. So as long as you blow out the system, there's
fine.
0 maintenance.
Okay. And you would schedule that, right? So you kind of probably have a maintenance schedule and you're kind of scheduling everybody's clothes?
It depends. Some people like to be told when to do it. Some people like to call when they're ready.
Okay.
So you know, if it was up to me, I would prefer everybody be on a maintenance plan. You know, it makes it more of our responsibility, and you're leaving it in our hands. You know, you're not going to forget when to schedule. There are people who have forgotten to call us. They didn't think of it until, you know, they had a flash freeze, and then the pipes burst, and then the next day when it thaws, now you've got geysers coming out of the side of your house.
Yeah. And you never know when winter's going to start. Like this past fall, we had, you know, it was November. You know, the couple years before that, it was December. So
yeah, this year was actually really strange. We had some systems freeze entirely while we were still doing installs elsewhere. I mean, and that's why I tell everybody, if you want to make sure you've at least got your spot in the schedule, call in advance, even if it's, say, September. If you know past, you know, November 1st, you're not going to need to use your garden hose, or you don't need to water. Call September, book your appointment. That way, when it comes to November 1st, and you're thinking, oh man, I forgot, and you call the sprinkler guy, and everybody's already booked solid. Like, unfortunately, you're going to be waiting, and you may
Yeah.
get some damages in the meantime. But
yeah, like getting our snow tires off, right? We're gonna wait in line.
Exactly. You don't remember until you slid through a stop sign.
That's right. So now this time of year, Daniel. So you did the winter blowouts. So are you doing how now? Is there anything? Do you need to go to help people set up their system in the spring, or are you doing checks?
Basically how it works is you've got your startups. Some people like to do the mid-season checkup and then the winterization. So startup, you book your slot, we come in, say hi, how's it going? We go inside, we turn on the water, let it fill the system, and then we do, depending on the size of the job, typically you do a 2-minute test every zone, and you stand there and you walk around the system as it's operating. You're checking that the heads are still set in the proper, arc, whether it's a 90 degree, 180 degree, etc. You make sure, there's no overgrowth of plants that are now blocking sprinkler heads. You basically start up, you turn the water on, you run through a test of every zone, you make sure it's operating as it's supposed to. That way, when you leave, it's good to go unless, there's any damage. Otherwise, typically you don't need to show up again till the end of the year, at least with the smart controllers. With the conventional controllers, if you don't want to be wasting your money watering, you can call someone to come back to adjust the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's where the smart controllers have such a big impact, because you can call me and say, hey, I don't want my system running this much now. I just want it to be twice a week. While I'm on the phone with you, I can make that adjustment, and that falls under a monitoring plan. So you're paying, let's say, $10 a month for the season. Let's say you've got eight months, $10 a month for us to monitor your system, where to make adjustments like that, you would have otherwise had to call us in for a service call if you didn't have a smart controller, and you're off the bat, you're paying $100 for something that it's going to take me 2 seconds. So that's why I tell people, I know you might not think you're ever going to, you probably don't know why you would need to have your irrigation monitored until you get into a situation where you think, geez, I wish I had it monitored. So again, $80 for the year to monitor and make any adjustments you need versus $100 per visit. In my mind, it's
a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Now, can homeowners monitor it themselves, or?
Yeah, you can. That's the beauty of the app. You have access to the app just like I do. You see exactly what I see. You can do exactly what I do.
Okay, that's good to know.
So really, that's a good point. If you've got the Wi-Fi, you can really be making these changes by yourself if you wanted to.
And Daniel, is it easy for people who don't have a smart controller right now to upgrade to a smart controller? Can they do it themselves? Or do they need to call a professional?
Literally come in, take the controller off the wall, put the new one up, wire it, and just run through a test again, connect it to your Wi-Fi, and that's it.
Wow.
Very nice.
Excellent.
The good thing about these is, you can change your controller, and right out of the box, you're going to save 50% on your water by doing nothing else.
Wow, really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so I tell people, this is the kind of the analogy I ask people, if you could pay $200 right now to get $1,000, would you do it? And everyone's like, yeah, of course, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
And I say, then why wouldn't you spend $200 to upgrade your system to save $1,000, $2,000, $3,000? Because don't forget, all of the savings you get right when you make that change initially, that's exponential. Every year, that's savings that you wouldn't have otherwise saved because you've had a conventional controller. So every year, that savings is just compounding and compounding.
Okay. All right. And now let's talk a bit about your business. Time is flying. Oh my goodness. So I'm
talking too much.
No, that's okay. This is great information. Mike has written in and he's asking what your service area is. He's in Belleville.
He's in Belleville. Service area that's a little bit out of our reach.
Yes.
We would do a new job over there, but service, we go from Whitby to, let's say, Aurora, Newmarket. We go as far as Cottage Country. Prefer not to service that, but and then out to Burlington. We've been around for a very long time, so we've built up pockets everywhere. So even though we may drive out to Burlington, we're doing 10 houses in Burlington that day. So that's where we're lucky. Whereas, everybody, in business and service business, you try to stick to a small area.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. We hadn't focused on that, but luckily we grew in a way that we've got areas in the east and the west and the north and the south.
Oh,
But
okay, that's good. So you can have
Belleville,
different
unfortunately,
crews,
just
right? Do you have different? Do you have different crews then that go?
Yeah, we've got a guy in the east, a guy in generally in the city, and then a guy in the west.
Right.
So, for the most part, which is nice about our company, is you're going to get the same guy year after year. Whereas, a lot of I'll say the bigger companies, it's harder to retain people, so you're kind of shuffling the deck every year, and so your clients are going to be met with new people. Some people are kind of uneasy about that. They like the familiar face, especially, if it's, a single mom, she's at home, and it's 6 in the morning, it's dark out, and, there's a guy knocking on the door.
Yeah.
They like to know, hey, that's Jesse from Aquaman. Okay,
That's right. That's right.
I don't have to be scared.
So then your area is a nice, good, large area. So that is good. Unfortunately, Mike, we don't go as far as Belleville. Now, would you have connections with other people or?
If he wants somebody, I can get him a name, no problem.
Okay. Okay. That's so Mike, if you have a question, email that to us here at instudio101@gmail.com, and we can kind of have Daniel connect you with someone. That would be great.
I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, and so people can find you on your website.
Yeah, aquamanirrigation.ca. Also now on Instagram. Not on Facebook yet, but we got a website and we're on Instagram.
Okay, perfect.
We haven't. Luckily for us, we've built most of our business on reputation, so we haven't really spent much energy on marketing, which is good, I guess, for us. It's a good sign that our clients are happy with what we're doing.
Yeah, referrals are great. It's gold.
Yeah, it's the best business. Even for somebody to get a referral from a friend, like they know that they're getting somebody they can trust, that their friend is trusted, who's not been let down. Really, that's the best way to do any kind of business in my mind.
Absolutely. So as we wind down, I just wonder if you could just speak to a minute or two on the actual product, because we know that you get what you pay for. So is there a specific line of product that you use? Is it proprietary, like in the sense of the heads and that type of thing?
It's not proprietary. There is, what I will say is the Hunter Pro C HydroWise controller, in my opinion, and probably a lot of people's opinion, is the holy grail as far as the smart controllers for residential. There's a Rainbird system as well. It's not quite as intelligent as the Hunter, and I find the platform, the app, is not as user-friendly.
Okay.
Excuse me. So we've actually predominantly sold Rainbird products until the Hunter HydroWise came out. Now we try to use that as exclusively as possible. Again, some people aren't overly concerned with how much water they're using, so we use the conventional Rainbird controllers in those cases.
Okay.
But anybody who's concerned about their water consumption, we use the Hunter Pro C HydroWise.
Are you seeing more and more people leaning that way, about water conservation? Is that, you think? I think it's a bit of a trend, but what are you seeing?
Yes and no. We went through the WSIP program, which is the Water Smart Irrigation Professional program, which the Region of Peel, York, and Hamilton came out with. Basically, what they said is majority of water used in the summer that's tying up the infrastructure is from irrigation. So their logic is, instead of beefing up our infrastructure, spending more money on bigger infrastructure to make it usable on what they call a peak demand, which is the days in the summer where you're using the most water, they're educating people and training them and certifying them on these technologies and concepts so that we can be kind of the spearhead of, the efficiency wave and educating our clients on how to save their own water, because ultimately that's going to help us all in our taxes, on our, infrastructure. It sounds small when you look at one house. You're like, I can't. I'm just a drop in the hat. I can't have a big impact. But when you got all the houses across the city on this technology, you'll be shocked at how much water. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there was. I might be able to find it here quickly. But so there's a competitor of ours. They were involved really early on in the WSIP program, and they have a client where I think they've got. I'm not sure the actual number of properties, but they saved the portfolio of this client. I think it was around $500,000 in 1 year on their water. So they're going to save that every year on their water consumption
Wow.
by retrofitting all of their commercial irrigation systems.
Oh, okay. Yep. So it's a commercial property. Yep. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible.
So, yeah.
That's
and
something to think about,
that's for
too.
the controller. And then I'll quickly go through the nozzles. So spray nozzles have been kind of standard forever. Now they have what's called a rotary nozzle, where it looks like kind of lasers turning as it spins. The concept there is that it shoots out a bigger stream of water, bigger droplets, and the idea there is that the wind and evaporation is not going to happen from the time that droplet leaves the head to the time it hits the grass. Whereas with the typical spray nozzles, it ends up being a bit of a mist, so you're losing a lot of that water before it even hits the ground. If you see them in operation, you really notice it. It might be kind of hard to understand with just how I'm explaining it, but rotary nozzles are another new product, not technology related. That's just kind of mechanical.
Yeah.
There's pressure regulation, so most heads are designed to operate at a certain pressure. Then there's heads that control the pressure. When you get too much pressure, you get the misting again and wasting water. So controlling the pressure is something people don't think about, but it has a big impact on the amount of water you're using.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, this was really super informative, and I really hope we didn't get a chance to talk lighting, but you also do lighting. So
no problem.
We would love to have you back. Yeah, we'd love to have you back to talk about lighting. And maybe follow up with a bit of irrigation as we run out of time. So thank you so much.
No problem, guys.
Once
Thanks
again, for joining us. And we really appreciate telling everybody all about ways to save money and water.
Yeah, and just because I'm done here, if anybody's still firing questions through, feel free to send them over to me. I'll happily answer anything.
Okay, excellent. And again, we want to give a shout out to your website, which is www.aquamanirrigation.ca. I know Matt had a joke about the Aquaman movie, but anyway.
You know what? People love the name. My dad had a good idea way back, and unfortunately, we didn't capitalize on the new movie. But
shucks,
that's okay.
You didn't trademark that, but anyway, well, thanks again,
you know
Daniel.
What? I actually tried to follow Jason Momoa on Instagram, thinking he'd have some sympathy because our company's name is Aquaman, but that didn't work out.
No, gosh. Well, thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye, Daniel.
Wow, that was a lot of information in a short period of time. So I hope our listeners got everything they were looking for. I mean, I think it's the best tip that came out was realizing that if you have an existing system that has the old technology with the rain sensors, that you can upgrade to the water saver system. So I think that's really exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you tuned in late, don't forget to find us on your favorite podcast app, and you can go to our websites down to the number 2, earth.ca and Natural Affinity Designs to find links to the past shows.
That's right. You can follow us, and all our links to our social media are there as well. And we just want to thank everybody.
That's it.
For listening in, and thank you for who wrote. People had questions.
Thanks James, Joyce, Kyle, and Mike for writing in. Thanks Gary for helping us to produce the show as always. And thank you everybody, all of our listeners, for joining us here on Down the Garden Path on Reality Radio 101.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your host, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.